Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. It's been a very long time. We actually had started a podcast years ago at the very start of NerdRabbit. Recently, there's been changes. We actually merged with our sister company to try and create a more comprehensive approach to helping people with their cloud problems. As we did that, we actually wanted to bring back the NerdRabbit podcast to talk a little bit about some of the problems that people face in the cloud and getting used to just the technology that the cloud introduces, the cultural changes needed in your companies to cooperate with that to the best of your ability. To do that, one of the things we wanted to do with our very first podcast back was start what we're calling our Nerd Workshop series. We're going to talk about a specific topic on each of these podcasts. We're going to bring a nerd from our site on to just talk a little more about some of these hot topics of mine in the cloud. So introducing Arun Krishnakumar. Welcome. We're excited to have you on here. Arun has been on our site for a couple of years now. He's Rabbit 633. He has been doing a number of projects, a lot of them around DevOps, a lot of them around automation, popular topics in the cloud space. So Arun, by all means, feel free to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little more about the work you've been doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. This is Arun. I'm a nerd. Been using the NerdRabbit platform for almost 2 years. It's such a great platform. And my background is I'm an enterprise cloud architect, a pretty much deep dive into cloud infrastructure, can like name it AWS a lot. My experience, so DevOps, it is something like it's becoming more and more prevalent in all the industry verticals, right? From small SMB to enterprise and bigger clients. Without DevOps, I don't think there is an IT team that can function right now. Lot can be achieved and lot of benefits can also be achieved using this DevOps process.
No, excellent. And it's definitely been a conversation effectively since the cloud started coming to prevalence for tech companies as a way for them to host their infrastructure. I think the big reason being that the cloud just unlocked certain technology that made DevOps a more attainable thing for a lot of people, to be able to replace a lot of operational elements with coding solutions. Now, with DevOps, a lot of people see that term. They think of maybe DevOps engineers, and they think of a lot of technical components and technical elements, I'm sure. Something that's pretty important is DevOps being a cultural change for companies. It's not necessarily contained to a set of tools or a coding language or things like that. So I was hoping you could kind of walk everyone a little more about what DevOps culture means.
Absolutely. So it's a complete way of, let's say, it's a cultural mindset that every company or every organization is transforming from the traditional way of handling the whole infrastructure to the way of handling the cloud. And again, DevOps is something not only prevalent to cloud, but also like on-premise, but it becomes more and more sophisticated when it goes into the cloud. And DevOps culture is something like it has to start with accepting our change, accepting our mindset. Oh, we are not going to do traditional way. I'm going to bring the development and operations team together to have a single culture on how we are going to do the infrastructure automation. So that is the, I will say, like a greatest benefit and a first step that we need to achieve for an effective DevOps strategy program.
Excellent. Yeah, and I mean, as far as that goes, that you mentioned bringing development and operations together. Obviously, you sometimes see that in its purest form in the DevOps engineer. But the notion that these two things have a lot to gain from each other if you kind of tear down those silos, and a lot of that's organizational. It's not technical. It's how the organization functions. So yeah, cultural elements are huge. Now, obviously, it's still a technical shift, so tools are important. Obviously, as far as like how people go about looking at DevOps tools, choosing which tools to use, what matters to them. Can you give us some pointers there?
There are a lot of tool sets. Okay, n number of tool sets in the market right now. I'm not going to go each and every tool set in detail because every company adopts a different kind of a tool set that is satisfying their needs. So you can name it from, let's say, Terraform for the cloud automation, and then Ansible, Chef, Puppet. There are a lot of tools out there. Okay, so it depends on which tool set it's suitable for us, and what type of our skill set matches with the tool set. So what I've seen in my experience is uh, people coming from the normal like a traditional background, they move on to the DevOps culture, then they already have some kind of experience. For example, they have Windows PowerShell experience. So for them, right, it could be like an easy transition to move over the Terraform because they might have already written some scripting language. So Terraform becomes more a suitable platform to write the code. So similar thing, there are other platforms available like Ansible, Chef. So the toolset selection is particularly like what kind of how I'm able to easily achieve the scripting language, how I can learn the scripting language. But again, also it goes with there are a few other factors, let's say like the cost, the licensing cost, and then how much time it takes to learn for me, and how much time it's going to take to configure. So there are so many different factors in governing the tool set. But I think like everything, it starts from once we made sure we are going to go into the DevOps whole strategy and transformation program, then I think we can pick our tool set that is satisfying our needs.
Yeah, so it's circumstantial. It depends on where are you
Mm-hmm.
at, where are you going, why are you where you're at, and why are you going where you're going, and how do we best adapt you without shaking the boat too much along the way. Um, and past DevOps and DevOps tools, there's obviously a new term popping up pretty popularly, DevSecOps. Um, Kind of mixing some security elements into it. I guess, again, the benefits you're looking for from breaking down some of the silos. Can you walk people through a little bit of why DevSecOps has become more prevalent?
Absolutely. So actually, I'm actually moving on from DevOps to DevSecOps because I feel like DevOps is becoming an old term right now. People are moving more into DevSecOps. You have the security as part of the DevOps, it becomes a DevSecOps. So I could give like a classic a customer example. So for one of the customer, I was creating a pipeline, like a Jenkins pipeline, and the repository is on GitHub, but they wanted, the customer told, okay, I want to see like how is I want to do a code scanning or analysis. So what we have done is like we could created in like integrated Sonar Cube as part of the pipeline, so that whenever they check in the code into their master branch, then automatically Sonar Cube kicks off. It will spits out the report completely. How many bugs, how many vulnerabilities, what needs to be fixed. So that is a clear-cut information on the kind of how the developers are writing the code, because there is a threshold. I have seen like if it is all the issues has to be fixed, all the bugs have to be fixed, then only we are going to release into production. So that is a great way to handle security as part of the DevOps. So that will be a huge factor in a bigger projects where there are like multiple members in a team are working, because there could be so many check-ins coming, so many code repositories out there. These automations will really help on the code quality on the application that we are going to deploy it. So I would highly recommend DevSecOps, like security should be part of DevOps toolset. Again, there are so many tool sets out there where we can tightly integrate with any kind of, let's say like Git or Azure DevOps. We can integrate and then we can get the benefit out of it.
No, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, with that, obviously, between you get to DevOps at first, it's the idea that there's benefits that development gains from interacting with operations and vice versa. And you bring security into the mix. I talked to a CISO years ago, and he mentioned that a lot of people think when you're a CISO, you think about your databases and your firewalls and all that kind of stuff. And he says it's more than that. You think about what kind of locks are on the doors, and some of these more physical elements of security, because if someone plugs a flash drive into the right computer, you'd be surprised what they can accomplish. And it's this notion that some of these elements like security are more universal than we sometimes treat them, particularly in regards to how it interacts with the code being written. So I think it's really interesting to see how DevOps is evolving into something new. Now, a company wants to say go DevOps. They want to commit to this. They want to know if it's working. So How do you measure that? How do you look at what you're doing and say, okay, this is going the right direction?
Uh, Absolutely. Like everything boils down to that final part, right? The measuring, how we are going to measure a successful DevOps program. There are a lot of factors. Again, there is no like a defined rule set or path to measure the DevOps of success, but a few pointers can help, like what is the frequency of the deployment, right? And then and what are the metrics and we are capturing out of the frequency. So that will give us a pattern, okay? And what is the lead time for the changes that we are going through, right? So that is the time to taken to initiate a change and to having it deployed in a production environment. What is the total time? And then what are the change in the failure rates? The percentage of the changes that result in a failure require callbacks. So, but there are like so much of metrics that we should be able to gather while having a successful DevOps program. Like what is the availability time? How much time it's available? What is the uptime? What is the deployment success rate? Right. And then and again, like there is one of the thing which we haven't discussed is about like when it comes security, when you're talking about security, always there is compliance part of it. When we take into any industry like healthcare or a financial industry, compliance has to be there. That has to be very tightly integrated with security. So when you're doing a DevSecOps program, how are we measuring compliance? And what is the test automation coverage that we are doing? So these are the few measuring points. Once we should be able to measure once we have like a successful DevOps program.
Excellent. I mean, I think that's going to help a lot of people with at least how they're getting started. They're going to look up some of these terms. They're going to try and understand, okay, how do we measure these things? What does that mean to us? And they can start, again, like you said, a lot of this is circumstantial. It's your company. It's where you're coming from and where you're trying to go. Speaking of where people are trying to go, so we've had DevOps evolve to DevSecOps, and everyone's trying to figure out what the next step is. So for you, someone who's been in this industry for a while, has seen where it's been, where it's going, what do you think are some of the trends that are coming up that we're going to see next?
So again, the major trend is AI is taking the world by storm. So it's not going to leave DevOps as well. So there is a lot of AI adoption that's been happening within the DevOps space, especially let's say like GitHub is releasing a Copilot, GitHub Copilot as part of their repositories and GitHub Actions pipelining program. And same goes with Microsoft as well. So AI is a very critical piece in the coming future, like how we can effectively implement AI as part of our pipelining, like writing code even. And there is a constant maturity needs to happen on the whole DevOps program. It's not like an activity or a task, oh, we're done with this and we are moving on to another. No, it is not like that. Like a development project, DevOps also is a constant evolution, which means like team has to be there and then they should constantly mature the DevOps cycle, which is very, very important. And then so I don't want to go into details about the Kubernetes or the edge computing because these are few technologies that we could integrate as part of the whole DevOps program, like event-driven architecture, serverless computing, and then there are a lot of other factors. So future trends, I think there is a lot that can be achieved with respect to the whole DevOps program or DevSecOps program. There is constant a way of maturing the program.
Excellent. Now, if you were to say to a company who's looking for some of the initial steps to becoming DevOps, let's say they're just now moving into that area, what do you think are some of maybe the first good steps towards initiating some of those changes?
So we need to it's a very good question actually, Chris. Actually, so DevOps, normally when people talk about DevOps, right, it's only tied to enterprise. No, I wouldn't say no. It's even tied to small business. To what scale we wanted to do DevOps is something like they need to include us, like let's say like nerds, to educate them, right? What is the best way of achieving the DevOps program for them? We could start from small and then we could gradually go bigger depending on the type of application, type of workload they have. And that is where like they have to work closely with us so that as a nerd, as an architect, we could really help them to understand their need and provide a sustainable and cost-efficient DevOps strategy for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what it comes down to. It benefits when you're making some big changes to go from people who've been doing those changes to give some guidance. A lot of these things are circumstantial. The coding language is chosen, the tools chosen. It's going to depend on where you're at, where you're going, like we've
Mhm.
been discussing. As it goes, that was really a lot of the subject matter we wanted to discuss today, Arun. It's always a pleasure talking with you. We definitely have a few more of these prepared to do with you this year, and I'm looking forward to some of those. So, going out with it, we are appreciative of everyone who's watching today. We hope that you tune in for some of our future episodes because this is really the start of a whole Nerd Workshop series, as I mentioned, with the goal being that we're going to explore a lot of concepts, a lot of tools, and just kind of remove some of the fog around the cloud, make a lot more sense for everyone out there. So again, Arun, appreciate it and looking forward to talking to everybody next time. Thanks so
Welcome.
much.
Thank you.